Sword fights, lightning, electricity, Scotland. Sean Connery not even trying to change his accent for a role.
That is a perfect way to start.
People wearing medieval clothes. People wearing 1980s clothes. Is this movie incomprehensible, or is it deserving of its cult status? Welcome to Dumbed Down, a show where we summarize movies in hopes of understanding them better. Today we dumb down Highlander. A movie so underrated and so misunderstood that I felt it needs to be dumbed down in order to be appreciated by most. There's two versions of Highlander, a theatrical cut and a director's cut. Now, since the differences are only like 6 minutes, I will mention some, not all, of the vital differences between both cuts. Our story starts in 1986 during a wrestling match. In the crowd, we see a man who's not really paying attention to the fight. He's kind of drifting on and off between what's going on, and all of a sudden, he gets a flashback to a time in Scotland during a battle. Now, you might be asking, is this the past life? Is this someone else's memories? So far, we don't know shit. All we know is that this man is in need of some cocaine. So he goes to a parking lot. No, I'm just kidding. He decides to go to the parking lot because he senses that someone's out there. And he's not wrong, because someone's right behind him.
McLeod.
Fazil.
So this guy Fazil and McLeod go at it at a parking garage. They fight and fight. McLeod loses his sword. He grabs a wrench of some kind. They keep fighting. Eventually he gets back his sword and they fight some more and more. And here's the thing, they're fighting and no one is witnessing anything.
Wow, how convenient is fucking that?
I should note that the director's cut, for some reason, adds a scene of Fazil doing some backflips. I don't know, it was weird. So I give a point to the theatrical cut for removing that. Eventually McLeod powers Fazil and cuts his head off. Then all of a sudden we witness car windows blowing up, lights illuminating all around him. And his face, like, is he having an orgasm? What's happening? I'll eventually explain, but right now, we have to be transported back to Scotland. For some reason, the movie decides to go back to 500 years before the movie, when McLeod was a kingsman, ready to go into battle. But wait, once he gets into battle, no one wants to attack him. They're killing everyone around him, except McLeod. Why? Well, not until you finally see this guy in a dark horse. His name is the Kurgan, and like Fazil, he wants to do battle. So he challenges him to a duel. I mean, it's not much of a duel because he just stabs him pretty easily and he falls to the floor. Now, I know what you're wondering. What's going to happen to McLeod or his relative, whoever he is? Will he die? What's going on? Are they distant relatives? It's confusing, right? If you're a first-time viewer, this is confusing. But again, there's no time to answer because we're back to 1986 where McLeod is trying to escape that parking lot. I mean, no such luck because the police is right outside waiting for him. Here's where I start asking myself, why are they arresting him? Let's say they knew that fight was going on inside. Why didn't they go and stop him before he sliced his head off?
What's the matter, Pop? I'm confused.
Anyway, we also find out that he goes by the alias of Russell Nash. So he's taken in for questioning in the police station. And as he's being questioned, one of the cops who's standing right next to him starts asking him weird questions.
You a faggot, Nash?
Why, Garfield? You cruising for a piece of ass?
The one good cop presents him with a sword and starts asking him about it. Apparently it's a very rare sword. Oh, wait, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. There's also a lady who found Fazil's sword, the sword that was left behind, and notices that it's a Toledo Salamanca, some type of rare old sword. I'm mentioning her because you need to recall who she is, because she's kind of vital to the plot, but that's going to be later in the movie. So the other cop comes in with his own theory as to what happened in the garage.
You went down to the garage for a blowjob. Just didn't want to pay for it.
McLeod, Nash, whatever his name is, decides to punch him out and ask if he's under arrest. Since he knows he's not under arrest, he leaves, because he was just in there for being, questioned. Meanwhile, we have the Kurgan, the guy that you saw in the medieval times. Now he's in 1986 too, and he's preparing his own neat sword, and he wants to duel McLeod once again. If you're still confused, these fools are they're immortal. They've been around for a while, and they cannot die unless you chop off their heads. I mean, it's later explained by Sean Connery, but I'm just going to tell you right now because you're going to be confused throughout this whole review if I don't tell you that these guys are immortal. So let's fast forward, or in this case flashback, one more time. McLeod meets Juan Sanchez de los Lobos Ramirez. What a freaking long-ass name.
Chief Metallurgist to King Charles V of Spain. and I'm at your service.
Is that important to the plot? No, it's not. What is important is that he knows MacLeod is still alive after that battle. And I should also mention that he knows that 5 years before, which is earlier in the movie, he was thrown out of his village. All because they thought he had a pact with Lucifer. They just couldn't understand how a man could die and all of a sudden be alive. He makes a new life with a woman named Heather, and that brings us to the meeting with Ramirez, Sean Connery. He starts training him and preparing him for a time known as the Gathering, where the few who remain will battle to the last. That's verbatim what he says. And they're all in search of something called a prize. Sean Connery tells him if the Kurgan wins the prize, the world will be succumbed to an eternity of darkness. So they need someone like MacLeod to win the prize. Ramirez also tries to explain to him that if he stays with Heather, she's eventually going to die, he won't be able to give her any children, and he won't age a day, and she will become an old lady.
Heather, please.
After the training and after all of that, Ramirez is eventually killed by the Kurgan, and many years later, Heather passes away, next to MacLeod, just as Ramirez told him.
Good night, my buddy Heather.
Now that we have that flashback out of the way, we can go to 1986 and stay there, because this movie jumps way too many times between the present, the past, and I know a lot of these flashbacks, almost all the flashbacks are vital to the plot, but it's better to get those flashbacks out of the way so we can finally know what the hell is happening in 1986. Kurgan is getting ready, and MacLeod knows that the Gathering is in New York.
The motherfucking Gathering, man.
And so there's another immortal named Castigar. Now don't get too attached to Castigar because he's gonna get beheaded. Told you not to get too attached to him. So now it's only MacLeod and the Kurgan left. Now remember that lady who found the sword? She's investigating the murder of Fazil, and she figures out that there's another sword that beheaded Fazil. She begins to stalk MacLeod and tries to uncover how a sword that old can be around. She even mentions that it's impossible for a sword like that to exist. Eventually, she figures out that he's an immortal. He even gives her a knife to stab him with. He falls to the floor and they start having sex. Wait, what? I don't know. Whatever turns you on, lady.
Wow.
So eventually they kidnap that lady when MacLeod goes to save her, leaving us with the final battle, immortal against immortal. Eventually MacLeod chops off his head and takes the prize. So what does he get? A Happy Meal? A new car? No, he finally can be mortal again and have children. And if he concentrates, he can listen to what other people are thinking and shit. Pretty rad if you ask me. Anyway, she falls for him and they live happily ever after, even though they just met like 30 minutes before that happened. I mean, whatever turns you on, lady. Yeah, eventually there's a bunch of other sequels and I'll eventually summarize those, but it's not time for that. This was Highlander dumbed down. Make sure to like, subscribe, and check out any other videos that we have here on our channel.
See ya. Bye.
Get the fuck out of here now.